To welcome everybody to tonight's City Council meeting, which we actually opened the meeting about an hour ago to go into executive session. But I will remind everybody to turn off their cell phones for the duration of the meeting. And we'd like to have the staff introduce the audience. You want to do the Pledge of Allegiance first? No, I'll do that after I do the introductions.
Pam Spratler.
Betty Thomas.
Danny Thomas.
Olivia Quesada.
Ricardo Perez.
Jason Perez.
Raúl Quesada.
Sherry Cerise.
Steve Schmidt.
Sharon Adkins.
Dusty Schmidt.
Ryan Olson.
Harvest Thomas.
John Howard, Information Technology.
Tom Aker.
Pam Aker.
Chris Kramer, Commerce City Planning.
Ms. Ryan Cordero, Government Relations.
Carolyn Keith, Parks and Recreation.
Jenna Johnson, Parks and Recreation.
Chuck Sonnier, Police Department.
Kevin Phillips.
Jim Hayes, Community Development and Economic Development.
Roger Tinkenberg, Finance.
Thank you. Now, everybody, please stand. Join me for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilmember Bullock has somebody he would like everybody to keep in their prayers.
Yes. Former Councilwoman Kathy Teeter's brother is on life support, and she was telling me they're probably going to have to take him off. So if you could just put her and their family in your prayers. This is a really tough time to go through. So thank you.
Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item, I would like to invite Mr. Tom Aker to come forward to the podium, please. Tom is moving on to a new endeavor. He's returning to the consulting world where he first began his career. He has 15 years of service with the City of Commerce City. During his tenure, Tom helped with implementation of the Sand Creek Greenway Trail Plan. He helped complete the Prairie Ways Action Plan and reserve future trails, parks, and open space in the Northern Range. He championed the city's sustainability efforts. I would like to invite Tom, who has been a very close employee to me for many, many years, to say some remarks.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. It's been an experience working for Commerce City for 15 years. A lot of changes. I know the mayor and I and Mr. Bullock have gone through a lot of them together. Seen a lot of good changes. I think there's a lot of changes about to happen that are going to be just as good, if not better. And I want to thank everyone for allowing me to have that privilege of working with you, both staff and council and past councils. And I look forward to continue working with you, and I'm sure we'll cross paths many times. So I think the timing's right for me and the city, And I think also out in the economy, I think things are right for me to strike it back on my own and give it another try with consulting. So I thank you for this, and thank you for the good times.
Are there some remarks from the council? Mr. McEldowney?
I just want to give you a personal thanks for the support that you've given to not only myself but to this community. It's been a privilege to get to know you over the years, and really have enjoyed the work that we've personally partnered on, whether that be the sustainability efforts and our participation in the NREL Energy Leadership Program, or any of those challenging efforts that we've been able to come together on over the years. Again, I thank you for all that you've done, and look forward to hearing about your successes in this next chapter.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Moreno?
Tom, just also want to extend my thanks. I really have enjoyed working with you in my time on this council. And one experience that I do recall is when I was driving down Highway 2 at, I think it was 88th Avenue, and remember calling you, I think it was like 6 p.m. on a Friday, that the lights were out and that the traffic was backed up, and was so impressed with the dedication you brought to your work. You answered the call and you said, we'll take care of it, and it was taken care of. So thank you so much for your service to our city.
Thank you.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, thanks, Tom. I guess you and I have known each other for about 5 years since I've been on the council, and we've had a lot of interaction with regard to Dr. Cog. I know whenever I had a question about things like that and infrastructure, you were always there to answer the question. You were always very responsive. And hopefully you had something to do with that Chambers Road median, because we finally got it. So you'll be able to enjoy that. But thanks a lot for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Mr. Bullock?
Thank you, Tom. I was here the first day you got here, and I can actually say I want to thank you for your time when I was on and off council, because when I was off council, I was still on Sand Creek, and you helped guide Sand Creek through some of its more tumultuous times, and it made it the greenway that it is today. So thank you so much for everything you've done for the city and for the Sand Creek Regional Greenway. Thank you.
Councilwoman Elliott?
Tom, I just want to thank you for your years of service to the community, that you were very dedicated and hardworking fella. Although we didn't get to work together very long, I just wanted to extend my gratitude and wish you well on your future endeavors. Thank you.
Mr. Douglas?
Hey, Tom. Sorry to see you go. Like, I got in and you were going out, and but for the time that you were here, I appreciate the help you've given and guidance and all, and wish you well on where you're going, and Pam as well. Thanks for coming out here and supporting Tom. Thanks.
Thank you,
Mr. Teeter.
I'll get on board with all that, Tom. Thank you very much. I enjoyed dealing with you and speaking with you on and off. And also Pam, thank you, Pam, for your time, allowing your husband to deal with us up here. And good luck.
Thank
You know, Tom, spent a lot of years with you on many fronts, on and off the duty as mayor and council, as well as part of the duty as mayor and council. And I've enjoyed every bit of it. I know our paths will definitely cross path again, moving forward into the consulting world. And I want to let you know, if you ever need any resources from me, that I'm available and would like to continue to have a relationship with you. That said, I have a little something for you from us as a thank you. Yeah, come down, please. Oh. Next item on the agenda is another recognition. It is the Adams County Mayor's Commissioners Youth Awards nominees. The Adams County Mayor's and Commissioners Youth Award is an award that recognizes teenagers between the ages of 13 and 19 who have overcome personal adversity and created positive change in their lives. The awards program provides businesses, community, and civic leaders an opportunity to actively demonstrate their belief in and support for the young people in our communities. Teens in the community may be nominated by counselors, parents, teachers, coaches, or others within the community. Their nominations are submitted with all other cities. Nominees in the county, Commerce City participates in the Adams County selection process. The 20 highest scoring names in Adams County are recognized at the county recognition dinner. All nominees from individual cities are recognized at their local city council meetings. Tonight we are here to recognize our Commerce City nominees. This year we had 7 individuals nominated, all of whom we will recognize tonight. At this time, I'd like to invite Jenna Johnson, Recreation Coordinator, to the podium, as well as the City Council, to join me in the presentation of individual certificates to all 7 Commerce City, Adams County Mayor's Commissioners Youth Award nominees. I'd ask that all the nominees please remain up front receiving their certificates so that we can take a group photo following the presentation. You all would like to join me down front, please?
Yes, sir.
This evening, we only have 2 of the Youth Award recognees here this evening. So I'll call you forward. Jason Perez. And Dusty Schmidt. Congratulations. Congratulations. Step where everybody can see your picture.
On 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good.
I would like to say a few things about the Adams County Mayor Commissioner Youth Awards. Over the years serving in the capacity of mayor, it's been one of my favorite events to go and be able to listen what some of these youth in our community and throughout the other communities around us, what they've done to overcome issues, whether it be at home or at school, to become a better person within our community. So I want to personally thank each one of you for your efforts, and look forward to seeing you at the big recognition for the one down in Denver for the state. So thanks again for coming in this evening. I do have a couple council members that wish to say something as well. Mr. Benson?
Do we know when the county recognition is going to be?
I'm not sure when the county dinner is. Jenna probably knows. April 13th. And that will, it usually is at the golf course, Adams County Golf Course.
It is. It's still at Riverdale again this year.
Well, you believe 6 o'clock?
6 p.m.? Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good event, so if anybody can make that, we'd love to see you there.
I agree with what you're saying, to hear the stories that some of these kids are going to have when we go to that. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is.
What they've had to overcome.
Unbelievable.
Where they are, I know.
Mr. Moreno.
Just real quick, a couple of people have, I think, remember me mentioning last year that I was one of the nominees under former Mayor Dave Busby when I was at Kearney Middle School. And to hear the stories of our nominees in the past couple years, I'm so impressed with what you have overcome, with what you've done to improve your life and the lives of those around you, and really looking forward to honoring you at the county event.
I do have some closing remarks. Please, once again, join me in recognizing and congratulating these fine young teens for their accomplishments and nomination here in Commerce City. And Mr. Benson, this is for you. The 20 highest scoring nominees from all participating cities within Adams County will be recognized at the County Recognition Banquet at Riverdale Golf Course on Friday, April 13th, 2012. The top 20 nominees will be announced within the next 2 weeks. We wish all of our deserving nominees the best, as their nomination is considered by the county level. And that includes those youth that are not here with us this evening. So thanks again for coming in. Next item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes. There's one set of minutes for council's approval tonight. Before we approve them, I need a motion to allow council members Benson and Bullock to abstain from voting on them because of their excused absences. What are the desires of council? Mr. McEldowney?
We move to excuse council members Benson and Bullock as referenced.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
Second the motion.
A motion is second to allow Councilmans Benson and Bullock to abstain. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Yes, sir. Yeah, I have it here. Next item is motion to approve the minutes February 2nd. Mr. McEldowney. Mr. Moreno.
Second the motion.
Motion is second to approve the minutes. I have a motion is second to approve the minutes. I do have a request for discussion. Mr. Moreno.
Just for, I think in previous administrations, we've not had this practice where the mayor actually asks the council to formally excuse those who are not present. But on the minutes, it still says that council members are absent. I would just ask in the future that we can actually formally recognize those council members as excused on the minutes.
I would also think that that's a good thing to do. In my past practices, it was important to excuse council members that had called and had a valid reason not to attend a council meeting, as to be able to meet the requirements set forth by the charter on members who otherwise miss too many meetings for unexcused reasons. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Moreno. I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now we're going to take up our citizen communication. I have one person that has signed up for citizen communication. When I call your name, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Ms. Pam Spratler, welcome.
Pam Spratler, 7041 East 75th Place. I have a letter. Can I get Cheryl to give it to you?
Yeah, you can give it to Bob. Is probably the best since she's running the equipment there. Thank you.
I had a person run through my wall, my brick wall.
The one that is in between you and the little grocery store or whatever that is there?
And they've repaired it Saturday, but we really need some help to get a speed bump. we have a lot of teenagers go down that street and they speed. This particular one goes at least 90 when he goes down the street. And we have, you know, I don't know if you remember, but we have such a bad curve right there. And we're like 6 feet short from my driveway to the neighbor's driveway to the second house from me. We're 6 feet short. That's how short it is on that curve. And if there's a car parked there, you cannot pass. You have to wait for somebody to go through. So I need some help.
Well, I will start the discussion with you, Pam. I know, you know, there's a lot of people that want some speed humps, and I'm all for, I've been the one up here charged up, you know, let's give them what they want. I do know there's a process that we have to start with, though. And what I would do at this time would be to ask our staff to come out and do the appropriate speed counts and things of that nature to be able to justify that speed hump.
Okay.
And look at any other type of alternatives that can be utilized, because we hate to put a speed hump first case scenario to try to fix the problem.
Hey, well,
But-
I've been, I'm sorry, but
But-
I've been in front of city council like 3 or 4 times already.
Okay,
And I've already talked to Public Works 3 or 4 times.
okay.
And they keep telling me that because we're a through street, we couldn't get a speed bump. We're not a through street anymore.
That's
'Cause
right,
since they
because Quebec
changed-
is closed off, correct?
Yes. So
Correct.
that's why I'm back.
Right, you're more of an internal road. And,
Yeah.
and I do not believe that you're on a plowed street either, are you not?
No.
Correct. What I would do is ask the staff to come back with some reasonable recommendations for this council to consider, and they're here tonight. Greg Clements is in the audience, so he's
Okay.
hearing what I'm saying. And I think that we need to ask them to come forward with some staff recommendations, and ultimately, this council has the ability to do what we need to do.
Okay.
But I want to start with staff. I don't want to overstep our boundaries with our staff right
Yeah.
off the bat. I really appreciate you coming in this evening and letting us know about your problem. And we
Okay.
will take it very seriously. We're working on a very similar problem right now in Bell Creek.
Yeah.
And so we will have constant communication, and I'll ask Greg to make sure that communication is between you and him so that you're updated on what's going on and what the process is, and then we can get those recommendations back from staff. But I think that's really the way it needs to start for us
Okay.
as a new council.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also have a question.
Okay?
When we were coming here tonight, you know where the old water treatment plant was there in Quebec?
There's a
Like a station, I'm not
a
real sure what
reservoir.
it-
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
well and reservoir system there on Quebec.
Okay, are they drilling? What are they doing?
No,
Because we
they're-
noticed a rig there tonight.
I'm not sure what they're doing. They might be pulling a pump and replacing a pump or something because they have to use that kind of an apparatus. But they have a deep
Oh.
well at that location.
Okay.
And they're probably just doing some routine maintenance on their well and reservoir.
Okay, well, it
But,
just kind of scared us.
Right. Well, and the thing is because that is a South Adams water issue, and this council does not, that's a separate board, a
Okay.
special district. I can't answer their questions. I can just assume that they're doing some maintenance on their deep well
Okay,
at
well,
that
then,
location.
because I was going to call them tomorrow.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
find
just
out.
call over to South Adams. They can give you the true story update, but they would probably be maintaining their equipment there.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, thank you.
I think there may be some others that want to address you. Mr. McEldowney? Oh, it's from earlier. Okay, thank you. Seeing no one else, thanks for coming in, Ms. Spratler.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, now that I skipped over that, I need to ask the council for a motion on to approve the second set of minutes for February the 2nd. Mr. McEldowney?
Move to approve the minutes for February 2nd.
Okay. Mr. Moreno?
I thought we had approved.
We approved the one set.
The spatial minutes you approved, because that's, me
Right.
and Jim were
Oh,
late,
okay.
Right.
but we were here that night.
Right.
I
This is the
understand.
second set of minutes.
Second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now that we're at this stage, I would also like to make it on the record that Councilmen McEldowney, Moreno, and Benson have joined us for this evening because when I opened the meeting, and did roll call. They were not here, but I want the record to reflect that they are here at this time. Now we have Resolution 2012-09. Does the staff wish to come forward and address the council on this resolution before we proceed with nominations and a vote?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a few brief remarks by way of background regarding this resolution. Back in 2002, the Commerce City City Council entered into an agreement with School District 27J to allow for a fund to be created. In that fund is use tax that the school district has paid in the construction of school district facilities. The agreement provided for a joint committee of 2 council members and 2 27J school board members to discuss appropriate uses for those use tax funds. The agreement does require that they be used for recreation facilities that are of mutual benefit to both the City of Commerce City and School District 27J. However, since this agreement was entered into 10 years ago, the money has been accumulating, but none of the money has been spent. School District 27J last month appointed 2 members to this joint committee, and they've asked that the City Council appoint 2 council members to this joint committee. Those 4 individuals, along with the city manager and the superintendent, would meet, discuss appropriate projects to use those funds for, and then bring those recommendations back to both the entire City Council and the 27J School Board. We've started having some informal discussions with School District 27J staff, but at this point, it would be our recommendation that the City Council appoint 2 council members. I can tell you that the 2 school board members that were appointed last month are Sherry Coates and Donna Petrocco. Petrocco. I'd be happy to help answer any questions that you might have.
There's several that has lit up the board here. Mr. McEldowney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think just to clarify, the funds that have accumulated are available for use in the district, but only for schools that are within the Commerce City boundary, correct? So that would limit those expenditures to Second Creek, Timig, and Otha Stewart. Is that correct?
That is correct. The agreement does provide that the funds would be used on facilities that are in Commerce City within School District 27J. You're right.
Bell Creek's a charter. Oh, okay. They operate under a 27J charter, but they're not financially supported.
Mr. Bullock?
That was to make the motion.
Okay. Well, we'll hold off on that for a second. Mr. Benson?
Turnberry Elementary is also in there, right? Okay, okay. I just wanted to volunteer to be on that committee.
Okay.
And I live in 27J. I don't have any children, but I'm very concerned about what's happening there, given the fact that the voters can't approve any mill levy increase. I'd just like to be a part of that.
I have a question, Brian, or Bob. After having our regular meetings with 27J in Brighton and the concerns with the lack of sidewalk area or opportunity for the kids to travel from Prairie View, I know there's some portion of that that is within Commerce City. Could those funds be utilized for a project of that nature?
I do know that as one project that the school district would like to discuss. I don't know quite enough yet about where they would like to construct that path to know whether it would be in Commerce City or not. I know that the right-of-way in that area is in Commerce City, but the area to the north of 120th is actually in the city of Brighton. So I think it depends on exactly where they would like the path to be constructed.
And the one piece that I noticed that is in Commerce City would be from 120th Avenue on the west side of Peoria going south from the corner up into where the church has put in their improvements. So there is a gap there that I know is on Commerce City proper, and then not knowing what was exactly annexed for 120th, what portion of that is Commerce City right-of-way and what portion is Brighton, but I'm sure we can sort those things out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney.
Thanks. I just also wanted to put my hat in the ring. I have talked about these these funds and these projects with Mr. Blanc and members of the school board for some time through my other involvement with the district, and I would love to be able to continue those discussions in a formal capacity.
Okay. Mr. Douglas.
Yes, I'd like to put my name in there as well. I was served on the long-range planning board for 27J, and having a daughter open up that high school, and then the other daughter open up the junior high, I still have one child in the school in the school district. I like to be part of that process as well.
Okay. Mr. Moreno.
Just a couple of questions. Mr. McBroom, you mentioned that funds have been accumulating in this account, but none have been expended. Do you know the balance of the account?
I believe it's a little over $1 million.
Okay. But they've, again, never been used for a project collaboratively with 27J?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing no other discussion, we have 3 members of the council that have an interest in serving on the board.
Let's put all 3 on.
Mr. Bullock, do you have a recommendation?
I would like to make a motion to put all 3 on, one to serve as an alternate, so that way that we don't have to put ourselves in. All of them can go to the meetings and everything. If that's acceptable with the 3 that put their name in nomination.
Okay, before we go into a second, I think that as part of that motion, we have to determine who's going to be the 2 regular members and who would be the alternate if that's the scenario. Mr. Bullock, do you have any suggestions?
I would suggest that the 2 gentlemen that have kids in 27J be the regular members, and Mr. Benson would be the alternate.
Mr. Benson, do you have any concerns with that?
I don't have any concerns. I'd just like to be the member. You don't have to have children there to be concerned with what's going on in that school district and the way that it's
I would agree.
underfunded.
I think what I'm trying to get at is, out of the 3 of you, is there anybody who would be willing to be the alternate so that we can speed this process up? Otherwise, we'll have to, as a council, determine who not to have as a regular member. Mr. McEldowney?
I just want to pose the question to staff. I appreciate the suggestion from Mr. Bullock. As we are not the folks leading the charge on pulling this committee together, I don't know that we can show up with 3 people at a meeting where we've been asked to bring 2 people to a meeting. And so I don't know that we can institute a policy of an alternate without having that be part of the charter of the body in which we're being asked to participate. I know for other bodies that many number of us participate in, it's very clear that there aren't alternates defined, and so we couldn't have others come to those meetings.
And you also complicate the meeting process, because then it becomes a public meeting because you got 3 council members present.
Right.
So that would just mean posting it and having
Well, and
minutes.
it's not a body that we are setting up, and that's part of the problem, like Mr. McEldowney said. They would have to post it, or we would have to try to coordinate and post, and it would make things somewhat frustrating. That's why I'm allowing the discussion to be able to get
Right.
to the realism of it. So if there's not a council member who wishes, and I'm worried about the whole alternate scenario, just because of what Jason, Mr. McEldowney has said, and what Bob has said. If there's 3 members there, it makes it a regular meeting. They've asked us to appoint 2 members, which I think is gracious of them to allow the 2 members and the input. However, we have 3 members that would like to serve, and I'll give those 3 members one more opportunity before I'll ask the council to make a decision. Okay, what are the council's desires? Mr. Douglas?
I'm okay with Jim and Jason doing it. I mean, if I get voted in as one of the members, that's fine, but I'm okay if those 2 are representing the city.
I appreciate that respect, Mr. Douglas. Mr. Moreno?
Thank you for that, Councilman Douglas. I move to appoint council members McEldowney and Benson to the committee.
I have one motion on the floor that we have to deal with first.
I will withdraw my motion.
That motion has been withdrawn. Go ahead, Mr. Moreno, restate your motion.
I move to appoint council members McEldowney and Benson to the committee. I don't, should I actually specify the name of it?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Mr. Teeter?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to appoint council members McEldowney and Benson to serve on the 27J Task Force with Brighton School District Use Tax Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Next item, ordinance on first reading. We have ordinance 1888.
Mr. Mayor, actually, we did anticipate a resolution on that, so if I may ask the council then to approve that by resolution. The only reason for that, under the charter, just for clarification, adopting something by motion has equal legal authority as adopting something by resolution. Not ordinance, but resolution and motion. However, from a record-keeping point of view, it's much easier if we have a resolution on file with the clerk's office summarizing your action rather than having to search through minutes to find your actions. So the result is any time the council appoints a committee, we've been doing that by resolution now. So if I may ask the council to proceed.
No, I'll ask Councilmember Moreno if you would like to restate your motion as a resolution.
Move to approve resolution 2012-09.
Okay. Is there a second? Mr. McEldowney or Mr. Teeter?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Since we are doing this as a resolution, I would ask if there's anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this resolution prior to adoption. Mr. Thomas? No? All right, I just saw your hand go up. I'm like you're bidding. I'm selling you something. Seeing no one in the audience.
Title,
please.
Title reads, Resolution Appointing Members to the Commerce City Brighton School District Use Tax Committee.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Title's been read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now we'll go to ordinances on first reading. Ordinance 1888, ordinance amending the 2012 budget for the Commerce City Northern Infrastructure General Improvement District in the amount of $2 million. Unless council has questions, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Benson.
I have a couple of questions. Where will Joliet intersect 104th Avenue? I presume that's going to take the place of the 104th and Havana matter that's going to be closed.
Mr. McBroom?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Benson, the intersection of Joliet Street and 104th has actually been constructed just east of the current Cummins facility. This additional project will take Joliet Street south and east of the Cummins facility, turn it to the west behind the existing Cummins facility, and have it intersect with current Havana Street to the south and west of the current Cummins facility.
But the intersection at Havana and 104th is going to be closed.
That's the long-term plan, yes.
Because I know that's where our off-leash dog park is, right over there in that area. So I guess to get to that, when it becomes closed, you'd have to go down Joliet over to Havana.
Correct.
Okay. Now, that area is obviously a member of the Northern Infrastructure GID. That's part of it. Their geography is within the GID. Is that right?
Yes.
And are they paying 27 mills like all the rest of us are? Hey, thank you.
I believe so. I will defer to Mr. Tinklenberg for a definitive answer.
I couldn't tell you if that property itself is in the GID, but that is the GID area, yes. I would have to do an actual property inspection to verify whether they're in the GID or not.
If it's in the GID, they pay the mills.
You know, if they're not in this GID, and they're asking the GID to spend $2 million on this street, I don't think I would want to vote for it under those circumstances. I mean, they need to be included in the GID if we're going to spend $2 million of the GID's money. So I'd like to find that out before I could really vote on that. I mean, that property is worth a lot. All of us who live in the Northern Infrastructure GID are paying $500 a year, 27 mills. And that's a valuable piece of property. They're going to be growing. It's going to be a big piece of property. It should put a lot of money into our GID.
Mr. Hayes? We're going to let the staff confirm with something here, and then we'll see if we can answer that question for you. However, I want to make it clear that this particular intersection and transition of Havana Street going away, the intention's not all for the benefit of Cummins. It's for the benefit of the danger from that hillside. So, Mr. Hayes, did he have some information, or Roger?
No, we're going to actually have to check records to verify.
Okay. So am I correct there, Brian, with the road would have been changed whether it was Cummins there or not?
That's correct. This configuration is part of the city's long-term transportation plan for that area. The current expansion of the Cummins facility is driving the need for it currently, but it's been part of the city's plan for quite some time.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, and I might add, this is a first reading, so it gives
Correct.
the staff time to check it out between first and second reading. So if there's a problem, you can take care of it on second reading.
Mr. Benson, you still have the floor.
All right. I can understand how it will benefit other growth when that growth comes to this area. But right now, and for the foreseeable future, it's going to benefit Cummins. And if they're not in the GID, I don't know why they're not. And if they're not, I would like to see us take steps to get them in the GID. I know they're not going to like that because it's 27 mills of their money every year, but all of us are paying that, and I don't want to pay $2 million out of our money to build this road, which essentially is going to be for their benefit for the foreseeable future. I mean, I can't vote for it on first or second reading, unless we know that. If they're in the GID, I would vote for it.
Okay. Mr. Moreno.
Question for staff: how quickly is the turnaround? How quick is the turnaround on this? And would it be possible to continue the ordinance to answer Mr. Benson's questions before voting on it on first reading?
There is some urgency to move forward with the project. We will endeavor to try and answer it definitively yet this evening. So one option might be to continue first reading on this ordinance with hope that we can come back to it before the end of the meeting.
Okay.
I would be prepared to make that motion if...
Let me go through the rest of the discussion.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I would be prepared. Also had a couple of questions on the actual project. What is the total cost of the Juliet Street construction?
The total that was given to me is just under $2 million. That's why we made the figure $2 million.
So the city is bearing the entire cost of constructing Juliet Street?
Oh, I'm sorry. There is a contribution by Cummins as part of the project.
Do we know that amount?
$150,000.
Okay. And I couldn't quite see in detail on this site plan, would the road include sidewalks and lighting and?
Mr. Clemens.
Councilmember Marino, yes, it includes, it's a standard section. Sidewalks, curb gutter, lighting, et cetera.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Bullock.
I was proposed to make the motion.
Let's hold off on that for a minute. Mr. McEldowney.
Thank you. A couple questions for staff to help kind of frame this discussion. Obviously, the immediate discussion seems to center on Cummins, but I believe the other critical piece of this that was touched on in someone's comment a moment ago was the ultimate closing down of the Havana intersection due to the proximity to the bridge over I-76. I don't think we expected to see the growth that we've seen with Cummins in the time frame that we have. We certainly welcome it. But my guess is that the moment that we complete the improvements to 104th in that corridor, that combined with Cummins is going to create an awful challenge in trying to get traffic in and out of the Cummins property onto 104th, as well as get folks in the existing industrial park to the south and west of Cummins out onto the roadway. Right now, that intersection of 104th and Havana is a nightmare, particularly in the early and late day rush hours. Incredibly dangerous, and as someone mentioned, our off-leash dog park exists right back there, and I know folks that won't go there because of the difficulty getting to there and having to strand themselves in the middle of 104th in front of the little yellow home, trying to dodge trucks to get back to that facility. I guess my take is this. The road needs to get done. It's a GID benefit. It's an economic development benefit to the properties that exist in that industrial quadrant. It's certainly going to be a benefit to helping Cummins fully realize their decision to purchase and build there. If it can give our residents access to the off-leash dog park, I think it's the right thing to do. We're funding 104th out of the GID. This is essentially a contributing roadway to that 104th Avenue corridor. In my mind, if you think about the full function of that corridor. So I think it's fortunate that we have the funds available to do it. Are there other roads that I'd like to see built? Absolutely. But this roadway makes sense, especially from an economic development and safety perspective. Again, I challenge anybody to make that left-hand turn heading westbound. So I don't know if staff has any points of clarification to anything I've said, or if that makes sense.
Go ahead.
Very well stated, Mr. McEldowney. It's certainly a project of regional importance. We do believe the Cummins project will be a catalyst. The expansion of Cummins will be a catalyst for additional economic development along 104th. And you are correct, the GID is paying for the rest of the improvements on 104th Avenue, or a major portion of them. To address Mr. Benson's question, however, the information we have available to us suggests that the property is not included in the GID currently.
Okay.
This particular parcel, Cummins and the adjoining site, that'll be the site of the expansion.
Okay.
But I certainly agree with Mr. McEldowney's comments regarding the regional significance of this project.
Mr. Benson.
Well, I also agree with Mr. McEldowney's comments. It's just that I have the feeling that people and businesses should pay their own way, and that I don't want to have, I have nothing against Cummins. Cummins is a wonderful business for us to have, and the expansion that they're going to have out there is going to be great for this city. But if they're not in this GID, and the GID is supposed to be paying for this, then may I suggest that we shift this over to either the city general fund or the city CIPP fund and have the whole city pay for it instead of just myself and other members of the Northern Infrastructure GID.
Mr. Douglas.
Yes, on $150,000, was that part of negotiation, or was that volunteer on their part? And was there any other offers, or is this what they had offered?
The agreement that Cummins would contribute $150,000 to the cost of the project was part of the overall negotiation of incentives for that project.
Okay. Because I can't really see, it's hard to see on here. So to the left there is Havana, correct? up on the map here to the left is Havana, correct? And then to the right here, that curves around, that's the part we're talking about adding on, right?
That is correct. The portion, the northernmost portion of Joliet Street, just south of 104th, that's the portion that was constructed by Cummins as part of the existing facility that they constructed last year.
And is there going to be a light, an intersection there?
The intersection is ultimately designed to be a signalized intersection. So the infrastructure to install the signal will be installed as part of the road project. I don't know that it will be signalized right when the road improvements are completed on 104th, but that's the long-term plan, to have that a signalized intersection.
Now, is that something that Cummins is going to have to pay for, the signal? Or is that part of the 104th?
I don't believe so, because Havana and the Joliet Street extension are public roads. It's anticipated that it would be the city's expense to install the traffic signal.
And then, because the intersection at where the King Soopers is King Soopers paying for that? That intersection with the light?
I'll rely on Mr. Clements. Do you know the answer to that?
Councilman Douglas, I'm looking at the cost estimate for this project, and it appears that the signal is included. Now, the signal won't be installed until such time as warrants are met. That means there are 11 warrants for a traffic signal, such as crossing traffic and total traffic, and various warrants to do that. So that won't be done initially until the warrant is met. As far as the King Soopers signal, I'd have to double-check that and get back to you on that to give you a definitive answer.
Okay, so you said as far as the $2 million or so, the traffic light is part of that
Yes, it is.
cost. And by looking at this here, this is really going to favor Cummins coming around there to alleviate as far as traffic, because I'm sure there's going to be pretty big vehicles. They're going to be coming in there, taking these engines and other parts, or bringing parts in as well.
Yes, as Councilman McEldowney stated, this has been in the plan as part of the comprehensive plan transportation for Commerce City for some time. The city owns the property, or has designated the property south of where you see that curve for a regional park. And so that will benefit greatly the city, as well as the intersection at Havana currently is, as Councilman McEldowney stated, a real problem, especially for the future construction of 104th.
Well, I've traveled that road there, going south from 104th down Havana there, and I know folks that try to get across there to sometimes get across to beat the train. So is that going to be widened as well as part of the GID, or is this still going to be single lanes on Havana?
This will be a collector, so it'll be widened. Two-lane traffic is sufficient for the planned traffic with the parking and curb, gutter, and sidewalk in the future for the remainder of the section. And on the south side of the section of Havana at 96, you can see the connecting improvements. But those improvements won't be constructed until development occurs, such as the Cummins development.
As far as this project goes, has any other developers or business owners going south? Are they for it, or will they oppose it?
We haven't had that discussion with them on this project, so I can't answer that question at this point.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Moreno.
I think Mr. Benson brings up an interesting point. What prevents me from completely subscribing, though, to his line of reasoning is just that this is already in the plan. This is in our long-term transportation plan, and yes, Cummins will benefit from it, but it's always been in the works. And I think it's an appropriate use of GID fund dollars, considering the improvements that will ultimately benefit 104th Avenue. Had this road been just materialized because of Cummins, I think is a different story, but it's in our plan. It's just taken a higher priority in order to allow better access, and will benefit, I think, will have significant benefits for development in that area. So that's just my thoughts.
Mr. Bullock.
My thoughts on this matter are similar to Mr. Marino's, but to go a step further there, on the 104th widening down by 6th and 85 and proceeding east, there are other businesses that aren't in the GID that are benefiting from it. And at every one of those votes for the used GID funds, Mr. Benson never brought these points up, that they were benefiting from GID money. We are benefiting, the City of Commerce City and 104th and Joliet, from this GID money, not Cummings. And to postpone this vote or to completely, if Mr. Benson wants to vote against it, that's his prerogative. But I think that we shouldn't postpone this vote. I think we should go along with this vote because, as Mr. Marino said, this is a plan that's been in our transportation plan and our comprehensive plan, and the funds were allocated before Cummings or any other business decided to expand. So I'm totally against us postponing or waiting. I think as a council, our job is to be proactive, not reactive. So let's get on with this vote.
Mr. Benson.
Yes, where were these funds appropriated from in the overall plan?
Funds for Joliet Street had not been appropriated. The 104th Avenue widening, this phase that would be up through this area next to Cummins, is in that phase 3C, which is, or 3B, 3C, which would be coming up, that we're funding partially right now.
Because I don't think anybody could argue that the widening of 104th between Tower and Highway 85 benefits everybody, and maybe in the whole city, but mostly the whole northern range. It benefits everybody, whereas Joliet, which, as you say, is not in the plan to be funded by this GID, this is a bad precedent to set. I think that the people in my area are tired of paying a huge amount of taxes, and to tell them that this huge company, Cummins, is not paying for a road off of 104th that right now, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to benefit essentially only them and maybe somebody that wants to go to the dog track. It's just a, the King Soopers is in the GID. There's no question about that, is there? Mr. Tinklenberg?
Let me clarify one comment.
Okay.
When I said it wasn't appropriated, it's not appropriated anywhere, city CIP or in the GID.
Right.
Because it was a new project that was not foreseen 2 years ago.
Right. So it's not in the plan, or what, it's not appropriated?
It's in the transportation plan, but not
Transportation
appropriated,
plan.
yes.
But there was nothing in the plan that said who would pay for it, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So what I'm saying is Cummins benefits this entire city, not just the northern range, not just 104th. Cummins is paying taxes to this city, to the school district, whatever. They benefit the whole city. Why shouldn't the whole city pay for this $2 million instead of just the people, half the population of the city? We're already paying for 104th all by ourselves. I don't want to see us get saddled with another $2 million in debt to pay for something that's benefiting the whole city. I mean, it's just, What would they agree to be annexed into the GID? Anybody ever talk to them about that?
Well, I think I wasn't part of the negotiation, so I can't answer that, but I suspect that it wasn't part of the negotiations because they're evidently served by the original general service area of the South Adams County Water and Sanitation District, which means they don't need service out of the GID. I don't know exactly where that boundary is. But going back to the point that you made earlier, and I apologize if I'm going to confuse this, but hopefully it helps cut it short. We have money budgeted in our CIP for Tower Road. Tower Road is in the GID. That money came out of the general fund. I mean, if it makes everybody feel better, we can pull the money out of the Tower Road project, put it over here, but that means more money from GID is going to go to Tower Road. In the end, it doesn't matter. Maybe from a perception standpoint, it matters. That's up to you guys as council. But from a money standpoint, I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. So I'll do whatever you want us to do. But
I've heard that perception is a very important thing. The perception is that once again we're going to be paying for something that benefits the entire city, and Cummins certainly does. As far as Tower Road is concerned, that's also something that would benefit the entire city, and I don't know why. Maybe it should be some split between the GID and the whole city, because that's where a lot of our economic development is going to occur in the north that's going to benefit the entire city.
Which is why we had budgeted some money from the general fund to that.
Tower Road is very important to benefit the entire city with economic development. I don't know what else to say. I know that the people that elected me are not going to like us paying for this road when it benefits the whole city. I know we're paying for all of Quebec, which I can't see much of a direct benefit to the northern part of the city, but I'm paying for that along with everybody else in the whole city. And now we're being asked to pay $2 million. What about having the GID pay $1 million and the general fund paying $1 million? What about splitting the difference there? Maybe getting Cummins to come up with a little more money, maybe $300,000 instead of $150,000, but just to say we're going to pay the whole $2 million. I can see how the vote's going, but I can't stomach it. So let's get on with it.
I have some comments before we move forward, and maybe this will help a little, Jim. First of all, I also live in the GID and pay GID taxes, and I understand it very well. The water and sewer infrastructure that the city participated in partnership with the district to have that installed is originally how the GID was set up, and anybody connecting to those services that were provided by GID funds were required to have to be a part of the GID. Now, the city went years ago and asked the voters of the GID to allow the GID to be able to pay for 104th Avenue, and the voters approved that. My question to the staff at this point is, based on the approval from the voters for that GID extension to allow for the development of 104th Avenue, are we moving outside of the scope of the voters' desire by building something that's off of the right-of-way of 104th, so that I have clear direction before I move forward with my decision, because we haven't all decided yet.
The ballot language actually said transportation improvements. It did not name 104th Avenue other than saying such as 104th Avenue. So it's broader than just 104th Avenue.
Okay, and we're within the confines of the approval by the citizens at that time. We're not adding more to the GID without having to go back and ask permission.
We're not adding to the debt because this money would come from the fund balance within the GID.
So we are not adding to the debt.
Correct.
That's a big piece of it to me, and that's why I wanted to clarify some of those questions. And so if Cummins was connecting to those water and sewer lines that were installed with the original GID dollars, they would have been required to have to join the GID, and that's how you get participation by the GID. It was the latter approval by the voters who allowed for development of infrastructure above and beyond the sewer and water infrastructure to allow and increase opportunity for development along those right-of-ways to enhance the northern range. And I do believe that this is a piece that will entice other development. It's not particular to Cummins, and this was not developed for Cummins. This was developed as part of our transportation plan because of a safety issue. And with the improvements to 104th and with the location of the existing intersection at Havana, I do believe we have a safety issue. But I also think we gain a benefit to the rest of the property around this intersection for future development and economic development opportunities to enhance opportunities for services within the northern range. So I want to hear what the rest of the council has to say before I make my final decision, but that's how I'm seeing it right now. Mr. McEldowney?
Thank you. And just to add to the mayor's comments, agree. I think to give context to this, the drawing on screen obviously is helpful, but I think if possible, can you just put up Google Maps? It's easy enough to put up the 104th and Havana interchange. I think it's important for folks to see just how much industrial presence is there, just on the west side of Havana, the south side of 104th, that today uses the Havana corridor and probably doesn't take advantage of connecting with Havana and 104th due to the challenges of that turn. My concern is that the minute 104th expands, those safety challenges just get exacerbated. I think the other piece, as we said earlier, is this isn't for Cummins specifically, but Cummins growing at the rate that it now is creates an accelerator to this need, right? And so what was always in the plan is now needed sooner than the plan called for. I think that's the key point here. It's not that we're building a road for Cummins, it's that Cummins' presence, and if it were any other player in that piece of real estate or in that region, we would create a new or increased need for this movement through that corridor. So whether it's Mr. Kushneroff's property right there at Havana, and I can't remember the name of the street that tees into Havana heading west.
Dallas?
Is it Dallas? I mean, you've got a significant number of folks over there that, yeah, this is perfect. Yep, so there's Cummins' existing facility, right?
And, Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify and emphasize a point that was made earlier. A portion of Joliet Street, that portion that's just south of 104th Avenue,
right?
A portion of Joliet Street has been installed, and Cummins built that first portion at their expense.
And that goes does that go to the south end of their property?
Yes.
Okay.
As part of the original facility that exists, they spent about $550,000 to build the first leg of Joliet, and they've agreed to contribute an additional $150,000 for this next and final segment of Joliet. So their total contribution would be around $700,000. The city's contribution a little less than $2 million.
Now, let me ask you, all of the portion that needs to be built is on city property, not the property of Cummins, correct?
There's most of it is along city property. The part immediately south of the existing Cummins facility is actually across the Excel right-of-way where their high-voltage lines run through there.
Right.
We'll see if we can zoom
Mr.
in.
McEldowney?
Are we able to zoom in a little
Now
bit?
that he has it up, do you want to finish your...
Well, I just think, to put it in context, obviously you've got the existing increment of Joliet that's been built, as Mr.
Right.
McBroom just pointed out. I think that's an important piece that was maybe missed in the initial discussion. But if you notice everything to the left, a big white rectangle here in the bottom left of the current view,
right?
That's I think that's the Kushneroff property,
right?
And then you've got all of the other existing commercial and industrial properties to that side that are all forced down southward down Havana today, unless they choose to use the Havana and 104th intersection, which I don't believe many of them do.
They do.
I mean,
they do.
but
It's
not
like,
at volume.
it's like a right in, right out.
That's right.
It's hard to cut across. That's why I was asking about the intersection, if that's me put in, but you're saying it has to be.
What happens, right, and I think to Mr. Clement's point, once that intersection is established, as traffic starts to take advantage of those new corridors, the measurements will start to be conducted, and they will be able to build that case, I would assume, fairly quickly based on how traffic is flowing through those corridors. If the need is evidenced quickly, then the lights go in quickly. If it doesn't materialize quickly, then you don't expend the dollars until you need to put the safety measures into place. But I can only imagine that once that change occurs, it's going to transform how traffic moves through this area. So, I mean, that's my take.
Okay, Mr. Moreno.
No further comments.
Mr. Benson.
Roger, what is the outstanding bonded indebtedness of the GID right now?
Speaking off the top of my head, which may be dangerous, but as I recall, it's about 90 million right now.
And that was all spent on 104th?
No, the originally there was approximately 12.8 million issued for water and sewer mains. We paid off some of that, and I believe that remains at about 10.7 million. And then we issued 79.9 million for the 104th Avenue project.
So say 80 million out of the 95 million is being spent on 104th?
Yes.
Okay. And I know you said that in response to Mr. Ford's question that this wasn't going to increase the indebtedness, but it's going to reduce the assets of the GID.
It would reduce the cash, yes.
Right. So that has the same effect. Is that right? On equity?
Well, from a fund balance, or from a overall fund balance standpoint, yes, but it does not increase the debt in terms of long-term commitment to repay.
But I mean, if you increase the debt or you reduce an asset, it really has a net, the same effect.
Well,
on a balance sheet.
On a balance sheet, but again, it won't in terms of the impact to the taxpayers.
Right.
Just from the standpoint, we're using current cash rather than it being future debt.
Well, the impact to the taxpayers here is that Cummins is not going to be paying that 27 mills. That is what I see as the impact of it. And we are. But I understand that it went to build the original infrastructure, but it was like, what, $12 million? Now we've got $95 million in bonded indebtedness that we're paying off, and that was for 104th. And
Well,
we're all paying for that.
Right.
But that's all I've got to say. I mean,
Mr. Moreno.
Just one last question, Mr. Ticklenburg. The use of the $2 million reserve fund balance, that will not delay the improvements of 104th in any way, correct?
That is correct. That was one of the things I looked at was, how much we need for 104th Avenue and what our available sources of funds are for that project. So I wanted to make sure that it didn't impact the 104th Avenue project, and it does not.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Bullock.
Call for the question, please.
What is your question?
Oh, I call for the vote. That's the question that I'm making a call for us to proceed with the vote instead of discussion. We cut off discussion when I call for the question.
Okay, there is no further discussion. Everybody has cleared their questions, so I am open for a motion. Mr. Bullock.
Move to approve ordinance 1888 on first reading.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1888 on first reading. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, read the title, please.
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2012 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of funds from the Commerce City Northern Infrastructure General Improvement District in the amount of $2 million for the capital project identified as Joliet Street and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I'll now call for a roll call vote. Let the record show, 7 in favor, 1 opposed, motion's carried. Next item on the agenda is ordinance 1889 on first reading. This is an ordinance consolidating into the general fund, the Housing Code Loan Program Fund, the Employee Assisted Housing Program Fund, and the Computer Loan Program Fund. Unless council has questions, I'm open for a motion. Mr. Moreno.
I do have a couple of questions regarding this ordinance. I don't know who I would ask them to. Maybe Mr. Dingenberg's going to be on the hot seat again. I noticed in the communication, for example, the Employee Assisted Housing Fund, we will continue that program, though, correct, through general fund dollars?
Yes, that is correct. Currently, the two programs that are planned to be continued would be that housing loan program and the computer loan program.
And the reason that these are being consolidated or eliminated is because, well, the accounts is because they don't have an independent revenue source, so they rely on appropriations from the general fund, and we'd rather just administer them out of the general fund, correct?
That is correct. The new accounting rules say that we can't have a separate fund if it doesn't have an independent revenue source. So that means we have to collapse those back into the general fund, which is where the money came from originally. So that's why we're collapsing all three back into the general fund.
Thank you.
Mr. McEldowney.
I was prepared to second the motion.
Go ahead.
Second the motion.
There was no motion.
There was no
Oh, I'm
motion.
sorry. Then I was prepared to make the motion. Move to approve ordinance 1889. I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Douglas.
Roger, I had a question.
Mr. Douglas, let's get a second to the motion, and I'll go ahead and continue discussion.
I'll second.
But I need a second. Mr. Bullock?
I'll second it.
Okay. Now, Mr. Douglas, can go ahead with discussion.
Thanks. In the past, was there any grants or that could contribute to this or have helped in the past? Or going forward, can we look at any grants that we could obtain?
For these three programs, we're not aware of any for these specific programs. However, the Housing Code program, we're proposing to eliminate that because there is availability of grant money to replace that in effect, and that is using the CDBG money to make small grants to individuals so that they can improve their homes. So that's why we don't have any heartburn over eliminating this loan program, which has never been used.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney?
I was just going to weigh in on Mr. Douglas's question. I mean, I guess the two programs that are being retained, I view them as employee benefit programs, and so to me that makes sense to have them housed in the general fund and supported out of the general fund. Is that a fair interpretation?
Yes, in fact, we're having the Employee Benefits Committee take a look at them and see if there's ways to improve or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moreno?
Mr. Tinklenberg, if you have the information available, could you provide me with the balance of each of the funds?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring that with me. The computer loan program started with $60,000, and it's depleted from there, but it still has enough to keep rolling. The employee housing loan program, I can't tell you the total off those, either one. I'm sorry. I'll have to get that.
That's fine. If you wouldn't mind just sending it to me or the council in an email after.
Sure.
Thank
Do
you.
that.
Thank you, and I'm really glad to see that we are continuing the employee housing program and the employee computer program. Those programs were put into place when we had a horrible turnover rate here at the city, and it has really helped to reduce the turnover rate over the years. So I will be supporting the motion to consolidate the rest of it. I have a motion and a second. Mr. Attorney, you want to read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance consolidating the Housing Code Loan Program Fund, the Employee Assisted Housing Fund, and the PCEPP Fund into the General Fund and transferring all remaining balances from the Housing Code Loan Program Fund, the Employee Assisted Housing Fund, and the PCEPP Fund to the General Fund, and thereby eliminating the Housing Code Loan Program Fund, the Employee Assisted Housing Fund, and the PCEPP Fund.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Let the record show the motion is carried, 8-0, 1 excused. Next item on the agenda, ordinances on second reading. We have ordinance 1883. This is an ordinance appropriating grant funds for the Mile High Greyhound Park feasibility study, and I'm open for a motion. Mr. Benson.
I just had a question. This was a grant that we obtained that was specifically for a feasibility study, right?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
who would that be paid to?
The grant funds will be used by the Community Development Department and the Economic Development Division to bring in experts to help us do that feasibility study.
And we are getting two free feasibility studies from the MBA departments of Denver University and Colorado University, aren't we?
That's correct.
We expect to hear back on that around May the 2nd. Is that about right?
I think that's correct, yes.
Okay. But this would be used how in addition to that? I mean, apparently we've got to use it for that because that was the grant, but I'm just...
If you're looking for more specific details on the feasibility study that the city would be conducting, I'm going to ask Mr. Hayes to answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Benson, members of council, the feasibility studies are slightly different than what we're getting from the MBA students. Although the MBA students will have concept designs and they will do some preliminary pro formas, we don't believe that they're going to adequately test their designs in the market necessarily, although some of them are doing some of that work. The intent of this money is to retain some consultants to look at some of our concept plans, really determine if there's a market for whether it be retail, a trade school, healthcare, those types of land uses on the property. We may also use those to look at more detailed transportation planning, specifically the interface with Highway 85, and then also hopefully getting some land use concepts out of those that we can further refine over the course of the summer.
Mr. Benson, that answer your question?
Almost, I guess.
You have something further?
Yeah, does somebody else have anything that they want to add?
Yeah, there's more names lit up.
Come back to me in a second.
All right. Mr. Douglas.
Thanks, Jim. Looking at this here, are you guys asking for, I mean, it says source of funds, 70,000, so, because I thought before the 70,000, that was it. Now, this is asking for 70,000 more to make it $140,000 toward this?
No, this is a request for approval of an ordinance to accept the funds that we're receiving from the U.S. Department of Commerce.
Right. So are we matching that, though, on here?
No.
Okay.
We need, if I could, Jim, step in. When we receive a grant, then we have to appropriate those funds for a purpose in order to comply with the grant. So we received $70,000, and now we have to authorize the expenditure of the $70,000. So it's not in addition, it's the
Okay,
same
well, I'm just
$70,000.
reading on this ordinance here, it says expected, I mean, as far as...
Well, that's a different matter.
Maybe I'm jumping on this ordinance, sorry.
Mr. Douglas is correct. There is a requirement through the grant process to match those funds. So the city is also contributing $70,000, but a portion of our contribution is in staff time, and what's the official term?
30,000 in staff time. So 40,000 of, in this case, probably URA expenditure 30,000 of city staff time, and then 70,000 of U.S. Department of Commerce grant funds. So we'd have a total of 140,000 we can use towards this feasibility effort.
Nothing to do with our grant. We have to pass this ordinance in order to receive the $70,000 grant.
Okay. I have more to say, but I'll wait till we're done voting on that 70,000.
Okay, Mr. McEldowney?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. I'm not sure that it was clear that, and I think Mr. McBroom started to touch on this, but when we get grants of any sort, there's typically a match required, right? Whether it's transportation grants, like if we think about DRCOG, Mr. Benson, on any of the grants that we hear about from DRCOG, there's typically a matching component to that. In this case, the match is, as you said, an in-kind services or staff time, so the cash equivalent of those services to help meet our obligations. We're not taking $70,000 out of the bank, essentially, to spend on this. We're accounting for the staff time that will go into this effort as a portion of our match. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Benson?
Yes, you said we were going to be using consultants. I think that we've had a lot of bad luck with consultants and surveys and things like that, spending a lot of money. I mean, even having people charge us $300 an hour for the time that they're flying on an airplane to get here. And I would just ask that we try to use somebody local, or say you're not going to be compensated for your time flying here or getting back home. I mean, maybe if you're here, you get your hotel and you get a per diem, whatever, but I would hate to see us wasting our money like that again. So I would just ask, and I'm only one person, I would just ask that we be careful as to what consultant we hire and what the payment agreement is.
I agree with that statement. In fact, we believe there are plenty of qualified consultants in the Denver metro area that can assist us with this work, and frankly, they're the ones that have the best handle on the market in Colorado. Absolutely.
Mr. Moreno?
Yeah, just to go along with Councilman McEldowney's comments, it does say in the report that the source of funds is $68,300 from Commerce City in-kind match and only $1,700 from the actual 2012 budget appropriation. So.
Okay. Mr. Douglas?
When this first came about, as far as the $70,000, the grant, I didn't see that as far as matching funds. I know on here it's in-kind match, but that wasn't explained at the time the $70,000 was presented as far as a grant. So that's what I'm confused on is, here we're going to spend, here was $70,000 for a study. I can understand that's from outside sources. But for us to spend any more time with this until we go to the, until you guys go to the ICSC in Las Vegas, I tend to hold off on that, because until we can, I want to see what the students, what they put together. Here we're going to be competing with ourselves with this area up here at Cronky with retail plus that with retail. We haven't made a decision yet if that's going to be retail. Like you said, there's three options. Like I said, I can understand the $70,000, but at the time that this was presented, I didn't see a feasible. I didn't see a match when that was presented. And being new on the council, I would think that would have been part of that package, as far as study and everything for council to look at. I'm sure there's been many other projects that have come down the line over the years, but when this first came, that I saw on this, I didn't see there was going to be a match of $70,000 from us. So that's why I'm questioning it.
Okay. Mr. Moreno?
I do remember when this came up on first reading, and I do think the in-kind was called out in the council communication. But to address some of the things about the NAIOP Student Challenge, I don't think the city ever intended to put all our eggs in that basket. it was served as a complement to the ultimate plan that the city would undertake. I think just from the city's perspective and from the citizens' perspective, I don't think the citizens necessarily want to see master's degree students calling the shots on what will ultimately be on that property. I think they'd rather see the city have greater control in that and to actually explore what should be there, because they have greater influence with their elected officials than they do with students that are participating in a challenge. So that's my perspective on that issue.
Mr. McEldowney.
Thanks. Just to piggyback on Mr. Moreno's comments, the suggestions that there's something hinky going on here, I think, need to be put to rest. There's nothing inappropriate about what's happening here. The city has pursued grant funds to pay for services that the city always intended to perform in determining the destiny of this property. So, as we heard from staff, the need to analyze in detail, now that we own this property, the transportation connections to and from this property, the possibilities of what could or should take place there, given the points that you've raised about what's going to be happening at Victory Crossing, what's happening in that area, that's analysis that we own the completion of. The graduate students that are performing in the NAIOP Challenge are going to be looking at a conceptual level. They're not looking at a practical level or an implementation level. Certainly they're going to be guided by those principles, but I think, as Mr. Moreno suggested, they're doing so in a classroom environment in order to test sort of all those things that they are learning about, as opposed to us who have a fiduciary responsibility to the URA and to the community to do the very right and best things for this property, and so we need to pay for those services. So we've gone after a grant for those services, and we're going to match those dollars, those real dollars, with dollars on paper in the form of people and time that our staff will contribute to this effort. So nothing more than that. There's no money that wasn't talked about from the beginning, and I'm sure we can go back to the original agenda item for this reading. This is reuse essentially of that same text. So I just don't, I'm really uncomfortable when we start to get into these discussions where we put forth suggestions that things are, in some way negative.
Or inappropriate.
There's absolutely nothing negative about this. So with that said.
Mr. Douglas.
I want to make myself clear. I didn't say, wasn't put anybody on the spot or anything like that. I didn't say anything was hocus pocus going on, or something was going on behind the scenes, or something special. This is just part of the process. The college students were brought in as part of the study. And we're not going to go off just based on what they said. Let me make that clear. That's part of the process. Let's not jump the gun here. And then I agree with Jim on consultants. I've been seeing consultants come in and out of the city. We spend a lot of money on consultants and end up with nothing. So we need to be cautious there with our citizens' money to start out with, and take our steps. I mean, we have nothing but time here. The economy has slowed down. We have an opportunity to make things right and to have a better understanding going forward. We don't need to rush into things. If the opportunity comes up, we can look at that. But I didn't say we're putting all our eggs in one basket. We'll at least take our time and do the right thing, because I've seen a lot of mistakes made in the last 8 years, and I don't want to repeat that process. So that's why I'll just make myself clear there.
Mr. McEldowney.
I'm going to withhold my comments. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to comment, though. Now that the board is cleared, I believe that when it comes to the feasibility study, that it enhances our opportunity moving forward to help drive economic development to the property outside of what we will obtain from the NIOP Challenge. Once the study's done, it will help determine what kind of customer base, what kind of needs, and it'll make it easier for us to attract and develop to attract and to develop the property. And when somebody's offering a $70,000 grant and we're offsetting the rest in kind and not cash out of pocket, I think it's really foolish for this city, not to take the opportunity to utilize the dollars that are coming in from elsewhere rather than our taxpaying residents to help us to enhance a property for economic development through a feasibility study. So I will be in support. Now, what are the desires of council? Mr. McEldowney.
Would move to approve ordinance 1883 on second reading.
Mr. Benson.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Attorney, read the title.
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2012 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by the recognition of the Economic Development Administration grant funds in the amount of $70,000 for the Mile High Greyhound Park feasibility study and the authorization of the expenditure thereof.
Thank you. I'll now call for a roll call vote. The record show 7 in favor, 1 opposed, 1 excused. Motion carries. Next item is administrative council business. First item on administrative council business, I would like to ask the council their desires, or why don't I let City Manager McBroom lay out his intentions on the acting assistant or acting deputy city manager and acting director of community development. Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the departure of Mr. Aker as a deputy city manager, it is my request that the city council appoint Jim Hayes as acting deputy city manager for external services, and to also then fill the position of community development director temporarily, approve the appointment of Chris Kramer as acting director of community development.
Okay. What are the desires of council? Mr. Benson?
He's gone.
He's gone. He's got his light lit up, so we're going to cancel him out. Mr. Bullock?
I move to accept Mr. McBroom's recommendations.
Mr. McEldowney?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second to approve Mr. McBroom's recommendations of making Mr. Hayes acting deputy city manager in charge of external affairs, external departments, and Chris Kramer acting director of community development. Is there any discussion? I have some. I think both men will make a fine choice for those departments, and look forward. I've worked with them some time now, and look forward to working with them in their new capacities if the council so desires to place them there. A motion and a second. I'll ask for a roll call or a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Congratulations, gentlemen. We look forward to some major effort in your departments. Any further administrative council business? Mr. McEldowney? Okay, Mr. Bullock?
Yes, I have a couple of items to bring forth. One of them that the Gene Klein dinner is coming up on the 29th of April, and I would like for council to be able to purchase 2 tables for council and any of staff that would like to attend this luncheon. It's a luncheon. It's in the afternoon on a Sunday. And I would like council's permission for council to be able to purchase the tables for us, because I think it's a very worthwhile cause, the Gene Klein Recognition Dinner.
Okay.
That's one, or do you want me to go?
No, let's take care of that one first. Okay. What are the desires of the council concerning 2 tables at the Gene Klein Angel Awards dinner? And I have so many people on the list here. If you just raise your hand and let me know who would like to make a motion. Mr. Benson.
The tickets are $20 apiece, and they're 8 at a table. That's it.
Mr. Benson? Okay. Mr. Douglas? I have a motion and a second to purchase 2 tables for for the Jean Klein Angel Award banquet at Worth Manor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Mr. Bullock, continue.
My second one is, this is the 70th year of South Adams County Fire Department, and they're celebrating it this year, and I would like for us to be able to present them with a proclamation on our April 2nd meeting, because April is going to be the month that they designate as their celebration month.
Okay. Is the council acceptable to that? Councilwoman Elliott.
Yes, I would be acceptable to that.
I just have so many people that want to call in for administrative business. I don't know what names are for what. Mr. McEldowney? I was prepared to second it. Okay. I have a motion, a second, to put together a proclamation for the fire district on their 70th anniversary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion's carried. Anything further, Mr. Bullock?
That is it for me until I remember what I forgot.
Who seconded that, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. McEldowney.
Mr. McEldowney.
Okay.
Mr. Teeter.
Yes, I would like to bring back up the vote we had last meeting on the ICSC, please.
Okay. Mr. Benson, or I'm sorry, Mr. Teeter would like to reopen the discussion concerning the ICSC conference.
So we need a motion to reconsider. Is that a motion?
Yes, it is, please.
I have a motion to reconsider the discussion on the ICSC conference. And again, I have a lot of names on here. So if someone wants to second, please raise your hand. Mr. Douglas.
A second.
I have a motion, a second, to reopen the discussion on the International Conference of Shopping Centers. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Now we can have the discussion. I'm going to clear this board, and you can all key back in, please. Okay. Mr. Bullock?
Yes, during the last discussion, I was ill, but I watched the discussion on TV, and as being an attendee of the ICSC conference, I wish I'd have been here, because I would have definitely recommended that two people go to that conference. It isn't the piece of cake that one person as a mayor can split himself into two conferences or two discussions. I think there should be another council person to go there, and there's going to be two staff groups, and I think a council person should be with each staff group to represent this council. It's something that we've done in the past. There was a year or two that we sent only one person, and that person was absolutely walked to death. I think that to benefit this council and benefit the people that are going out there to do their best work, and plus the fact staff has already brought up money for two people from council, I think we should be sending two people to that conference from council.
Mr. Moreno?
I respectfully disagree. I think we've last year got in the habit of sending two people when we traditionally had been sending one to this conference over an extended period of time. So I will be in respectful opposition to the proposal.
Okay. Mr. Bullock?
We didn't send two people for 2 years. In the past years before that and the years last year, we've always sent two. Now, the years that they did send one, that council person walked many a mile. And I can understand that Mr. Marino, I think, was one of the council people that was a one. Mr. Marino is a younger person than most of the people on this council by many an age. I can understand Mr. Marino thinking that one person can do it. I can understand one person in good shape being able to do it. But I'm not saying the mayor is not in good shape, and I'm not saying, that is definitely what I'm not saying.
It's okay.
I just believe that for the benefit of our staff and our council, we should provide the best representation possible. Thank you.
Mr. McEldowney.
I don't want to go to the extent of repeating all my comments from the last session, but I was also one who's attended it solo and in a pair. I frankly saw no benefit by having two of us there in the year that I was there with two of us. Again, I know the outside perspective on what ICSC is, and I understand what the reality of ICSC is. There are two classes of meetings that occur during an ICSC visit. There are those that are essentially maintenance. They're rather quick. They're absolutely appropriate and relevant for a staff member who has that relationship to perform the check-in. There is no value add by having a council member at that event. There are the other caliber of meetings, which are the more critical, if you will, and in those it does absolutely help to have council there. But to be honest, this is one of those things where council is more arm candy than they are the leader of the meeting. The work, in many respects, has gone in advance of the dialogue. There are clearly, don't get me wrong, there have been clear examples of dialogues that have surfaced very important, very valuable outcomes that occur ad hoc during the course of the ICSC meeting. But again, we are debating whether or not to send one person or two persons to a meeting that the mayor is absolutely capable of representing us at. I just, for us to open up discussion on a matter that we solved a week ago when we don't give this much time to matters that are of even greater importance is just puzzling to me. But that said, I will cast my vote when the time comes.
Okay. Mr. Douglas.
Last week we went to Washington. We did a lot of walking, and we did a lot of splitting up in groups and trying to tackle our issues at hand on our agenda. And I have to say, each day was was a long day. To go to Vegas, I don't feel that I'm going to be, or anyone else who goes is going to be arm candy. It's more representing the city. We have a lot of areas that are empty as far as retail, and I think we have to look at this as an opportunity. Once again, it's slowed down. Our economy has slowed down. We have a lot of open space. Commerce City is open for business, and we have to present it like that. And we have to have opportunities. And while opportunities come like this, we need to take advantage of them. And to divide and conquer, I see it's best to have as many people to attend as we can to ultimate outcome.
Mr. Bullock.
The statement arm candy. We may be arm candy, but we're the stewards of the arm and the candy. We're the ones that get to say yes and no to the budget. Staff can sit up in a meeting, and it's Mr. McEldowney's quite right. There are two types of meetings. But if the same type of meetings happening at the same time, where you do need the representation of the mayor, he cannot be in those same meetings at the same time. A representative, two representatives from council, I can understand, well, I really don't understand the need for no, but I know that as the arm candy of the city, we are the stewards of the city. We are the ones that recommend and finalize and vote on the budget. So we really aren't the arm candy, we are the candy.
Seeing no further discussion, what are the desires of the council?
I've already made the motion and the second.
Motion and the second's been made. No, the motion and the second was made to reopen. We don't have anything further. Mr. Bullock?
Move to send a second council person from this council to ICSC along with the mayor.
Okay. Mr. Douglas?
Second.
A motion and a second to send two people to ICSC conference. Now, Further discussion? I have some. This is a budgeted item, correct? And we are taking one less staff person than normal?
Sending two
Sending
council
once-
members is absolutely budgeted.
Yeah, two council members were budgeted last year.
And this year.
Correct.
And this year, and there's one less staff person attending than normal?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, well, yeah, we can, let me do a roll call, because it could be somewhat controversial. At least we'll get things straight here. Okay, roll call. Mr. Douglas, you're still not lit up.
Yeah, I'm pushing it, but it's not coming up.
He's pushing it, but it's not recognizing his vote.
Yes.
His vote's a yes. It's a 4-3.
It's a 4-4.
4-4.
4-4, so
4-4 because Councilwoman Carson, right?
it fails,
So it
and
fails for lack of enough support.
Okay.
Okay, next item on the agenda. So one will be attending, for the record. Next item on the agenda, council business, administrative council business. Let's continue. Mr. Douglas, do you have something further?
Oh, just on administration business. But
Yeah, that's it. That's where we're at.
I had a resident is requesting some bleachers and lights over at the dog track for 27J's ball field, the softball field, and I was asking if that's okay. I mean, how we go about going forward, something like that, as far as request.
Mr. Douglas raises a very interesting question. There has been an additional request already from the Commerce City Historical Society to have certain items from the dog track. We've been actually preparing for a study session discussion with City Council and the URA Board of Directors to develop a policy to decide how to handle requests that we might receive, additional requests we might receive for property that's at the dog track. What I would suggest in the interim is this gentleman that Mr. Douglas is talking to, or woman, if they could make a request in writing, that would help us and help facilitate that discussion with you at an upcoming study session.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Any further? Here we go. Mr. Benson.
Yes, I was at a meeting on Saturday put on by the, I guess you would call it the anti-fracking group, or Be the Change. And one of the issues that came up was that a lot of people thought that there was going to be some kind of fracking activity going on at the Custy well, which is the one that's in Commerce City. And I know we have a letter here from Hillcorp dated March the 9th. And I guess this letter is also on the Gateway website, where it says that this is an email directed to Chris Kramer that Hillcorp will be pumping a treatment to clear the perforations in the Custy number 1 on March 20th, 2012, which is tomorrow. The process will take 1 day, and there will be approximately 3 trucks on location. The treatment will be followed with nitrogen, and therefore there could be some venting of nitrogen as they bleed off lines. Afterward, it may be necessary to have a swab rig on the well for several days to help recover the treatment. No fracturing involved with this process. That's what I told people at that meeting on Saturday. There will be no fracturing on that well, and there will be no fracturing as long as we're engaged in discussions with the industry representatives. And I just don't know why these sorts of things keep coming up. because you can only beat somebody over the head with information so long, and yet they continue. In fact, somebody at that meeting even said, well, even if the governor's task force recommends that cities have no authority over the fracking process, that we should pass a moratorium anyway. It just indicates a complete misunderstanding of the whole governmental process and legal process, I guess. But anyway, that's something that we have to deal with. But let me make it clear once more. There will be no fracking on the Custey well tomorrow or any other time while these negotiations are pending.
Mr. Benson, did you want staff to speak to that at this time?
Yes, I would like for Mr. Kramer to come up and say a few words about that.
As Mr. Kramer's coming forward, I would certainly say that we agree with everything that you said, Mr. Benson. I think you're 100% correct.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, the communication that we received from Hillcorp was really in response to a request by the city. There had been some previous activity at the Adams County site, and residents and staff weren't exactly sure what that was, but they saw increased activity. Turned out to be just regular housekeeping, some maintenance, but we had requested to Hillcorp that if they do actions like that in the future, that they, out of courtesy, give us a heads up so that we can let the residents and the community know that typical regular housekeeping maintenance activities would be occurring, and that's really what this was. That was at our request that they sent us this information ahead of time. So it is supposed to be relatively short, just a couple of trucks on there for a one-day activity, and then I think a couple of day follow-up after that it may just have one additional truck there.
But no drilling or fracturing, correct?
That's our understanding, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Moreno?
It's actually not on this topic, so I'll defer to anyone that has.
Was there any other discussion on the topic Mr. Benson brought forward? Seeing no one else, go ahead, Mr. Moreno.
Just one item for the council. As a reminder, I previously mentioned about a collective council volunteer day with Habitat for Humanity. That date is March 31st, so it's coming up in about 2 weeks. The council group build day, and I know that there were some council members that said they couldn't do it that day, but that was really the only day that Habitat could accommodate. We have 10 slots, so if there are spouses that would like to come or children to volunteer, they're more than welcome. I'm going to see if I can get my parents out there to come volunteer a bit. And they don't know about it, so I guess they do now if they're watching. But we have 10 slots, and I'll be looking to try to fill those. And I have all the paperwork that I'll get to the council next Monday. It's just a release that each participant has to sign. If any of the city staff is interested in participating as well, they're more than welcome. Just let me know. That's it.
Okay. I would ask if we could get staff to send that out as an item on our calendars, please. Seeing no other discussion, there was a couple on there. Mr. Douglas?
Dominic, it's all day, right? It's Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, sorry, that's correct. It starts at 9 a.m., and they ask you to stay the whole day, and it'll likely go until about 4 p.m.
Because I have to work that day. But, I mean, I can be there at 2 o'clock.
Okay. I'll check with them to see if there's the ability to come a little bit later, and
Okay,
I'll ask them about that.
Okay. Seeing no one else, is there any other administrative council business? No? Move into the next item on the agenda, which is reports. We'll go to the interim city manager, Mr. McBroom.
2 brief items, and then I would like to give Ms. Halstead an opportunity to present some information to you. The 2 brief items are, we did send an update out to you tonight, the city manager's update. Included in that update regarding oil and gas is the information that Ms. Halstead is going to present to you in just a moment. So that's the first update. Please take a look in your email inbox for that weekly update. Second item of note, I will be on vacation next week. Excellent chance that I will be returning the week of April 2nd.
Excellent chance.
I keep trying that joke, but it never. This is a tough crowd. Mr. Hayes will also be on vacation that week, so in our absence, Greg Clements will be the acting interim city manager for next week, the week of March 26th. And with that, as Ms. Halstead is coming to the podium, 2 weeks ago, when the discussion about oil and gas and what's the city doing to communicate its message out to the community was occurring at the council meeting, we offered to spend some time developing a communication plan and bring that back to you tonight. We were not able to get that communication plan in draft form in time to include in your packets, so that's why it was included in the city manager's update tonight. But I wanted Ms. Halstead to walk you through the information that's in that draft communication plan so that you could review it over the next week and then bring back any feedback you might have for us at next Monday's meeting. So with that, Michelle?
Mayor, members of council, it's on page 21 of the email that I actually sent out to you on behalf of Mr. McFerm. Really quickly, there's some background in the plan that talks about what we've done to date since the middle of December. Of note are the number of unique visitors to the oil and gas website pages that we have. We've had 281 visits by different individuals, and they've viewed nearly 700 pages of information that we've provided. More than 30% of those visitors really happened the last 2 weeks of 2011, so when the site first went live to January, and then the subsequent visits have occurred since then. We rely on a variety of tools that we have in the past, and I'm not going to delve into those, but moving forward, in response to the dialogue that you all had, we put together a draft communications plan that really the goal is twofold. One, to provide educational avenues for interested residents to learn more about this topic, and secondly, to inform and also collect feedback on proposed changes to the Land Use Development Code and tenets of a memorandum of understanding, which was your direction to staff at a previous meeting. The approach we plan to use, pending any additional comments from you all, are to not only use the traditional tools such as our city newsletter, earned media, social media, our nonprofit and homeowner association list, but we really also want to do a series of open houses. The first series that we're proposing would be informational open houses the week of April 9th. These would be inviting specific organizations to essentially create stations, from the Refuge to Tri-County Health to other subject matter experts, where folks can have individual or small group dialogues with those experts. We've already spoken with several folks who are interested in participating, specifically the Arsenal folks. Congressman Perlmutter's office is interested in possibly participating as well. We would do 2 of those meetings, one preferably at Landmark Academy and one down here in the evening. Those would be weeknight meetings. And as you can see on the timeline, which is on the subsequent page, that's the first series. Mr. Kramer and his staff will be bringing forward kind of proposed draft changes to the Land Use Development Code and tenets of an MOU the week of April 16th. So we want to get this informational meeting to occur prior to that. And then we're also proposing regular updates, either written form or in person, from the Colorado Municipal League, who is representing the city on the Governor's Task Force, as well as the COGCC, who has their own task force relative to setbacks. So we'd like to make sure that information is coming in front of council as well, and then we can share that information in weekly staff updates as well as via video. The other series of meetings that we're proposing to do is around the week of May 14th. This open house series would be very similar to some of the comprehensive land use plan meetings that you may be familiar with. This is really to not only inform but also solicit feedback from our residents on the actual language of the proposed Land Use Development Code changes, as well as any tenets of an MOU. The reason why we wouldn't necessarily have specific MOU language is because obviously those are negotiations between the individual companies, the state, and city council. So that's kind of dependent on the back and forth. But we would want to get general concept approval of some of the language that we're seeking to work with those companies and the state on. Again, that open house series, we would propose daytime and evening, similar to what we did at the dog track for those outreach projects. In terms of times, again, we would also see a study session of the Planning Commission and City Council, and then ultimately your first readings and second readings, et cetera. Prior to those meetings, we would also have the boards available. So people who are coming to the meetings to comment or provide input would also have an opportunity to learn more and seek feedback. So the timeline that you see on the subsequent pages really kind of lay out the tools, and then where you see a date or a week date are the timelines that we're estimating that we would bring this forward to meet your stated intent. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
We realize this is a lot to digest. We did want to bring it back to you fairly quickly because the process is continuing to move forward. Our process of developing an MOU and proposed amendments to the Land Development Code. So it is important if we're to implement this outreach effort that we get moving on that fairly quickly, but at the same time wanted to give council an opportunity to provide feedback. So if you certainly have any feedback this evening, we would love to hear that. However, because we've just presented all of this to you, if you have thoughts or comments over the next few days, even up until next Monday's meeting, it'd be helpful to pass those things along to us. Either give me a call, give Michelle a call, send us an email. And we will start moving to secure locations for some of the open house efforts just so we can keep the process moving.
Okay. Mr. Bullock, do you have anything, comment?
No, this was for reports.
Okay. Mr. Douglas?
Thanks, Michelle. Now, can we put the recommendations as far as of having other experts there as well? I mean, not just Rocky Mountain Arsenal and Tri-County.
I would be interested in hearing them. We're looking for a broad spectrum. So those were just such ases, but we're certainly going to look at the issues that were raised so far and make sure that we have subject matter experts that can appropriately answer that. So yeah, I'd love some suggestions if you'd like to email them to me.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Michelle. Oh,
Jason.
He's not lit up here. Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Sorry, I thought you were keeping us on hand. Just thank you for the update. I mean, just a quick scan. This looks really comprehensive, and I know one of the big pieces of feedback we've gotten along the way is just the need for additional information and opportunities for dialogue. And so I think this is a great start. Obviously, with the key task force activity that's out there and needing to stay apprised of what's going on there and helping to provide a conduit for that is going to be helpful. There's certainly a lot, and again, we're seeing developments literally almost daily, certainly weekly on the subject. So to the extent that we can help act as a conduit and help get that information out there, it's great. So thank you very much for that. One thing I can't remember if we were able to solve for or not from an email perspective. Did we get email registration on the oil and gas site where folks could opt in for some sort of an email distribution?
Mayor, members of council, we do have a link that says sign up now for updates, and we only have 53 subscribers to date.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. McBrew? That's it for you? How about Mr. City Attorney?
I don't have anything additional to add for the meeting this evening. I do have several items that I will be bringing forward, but they're not really ready for the discussion this evening.
All right, thank you. And for the City Council's reports, I know there's several that will have something to add, but we didn't have a meeting last week, so we had an extended length of time where several of us were out of town in Washington. But prior to going to Washington, I attended the Water Commission meeting over at South Adams. I also met in the evening with the Boy Scouts of America over in River Run at the Church of Latter-day Saints so that they could earn some badges talking with an elected official. I also want to thank the staff on the great job that they did putting together the press conference for the economic development information that went out about a week and a half ago with Cummins and the other two companies. And I want to make sure that it's clear that what Cummins is bringing is a training facility and a call center, and the equipment that they make is not particular to one field. They also make, out of that plant, engines for dump trucks that are in Mexico for the gold mining efforts and some other. They make all of the engines for a certain tractor manufacturer, Kubota. So they do. I know there's been some issue of what do they do specifically. They do for more than just one particular industry. Then several of us went to the National League of Cities Conference in Washington. I want to thank the members of council that were out there in Washington with me and with the staff that was there. They did a great job meeting with our congressmen and senators, and we did split up, as Mr. Douglas said, and we tackled all of the meetings in two forces, which we needed to do because they were so tightly scheduled. Our primary goal was to push for a transportation bill to be adopted so that we could make sure we had our transportation money available. And while we were out there, the Senate did pass a transportation bill which enhances Colorado's opportunity by $2 billion, I think, from what we normally were receiving. And CDBG was another big piece for us to push, that we don't get it reduced any more than they've reduced it in the past, because as you can see tonight with some of the grant opportunities, CDBG helps with programs just like the housing program that we have. So the CDBG dollars really help our community to have things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to offer to our residents. And then I did make it over myself and Mr. Teeter to the Department of the Interior, and we talked to the Federal Fish and Wildlife folks about some temporary bunk housing needs for the refuge, for contractors to be able, that are the volunteer contractors that are working on trails and things of that nature, and their ultimate desire to, when the buffalo herd reaches capacity, to make that a consumable product rather than go to waste, so it could be utilized within our community. So I do think it was a different type of NLC than before, because usually we go there and we're asking for money. This time we were in protection mode, asking them not to take away programs that support our community and have for many years. With the economy where it's at and the budget deficit in Washington, we were in protection mode, and the council did a great job while we were out there. Also want to thank Dominic Moreno, my mayor pro tem, for not letting the city burn down while we were all gone as acting mayor while I was out of town. And I have nothing further on my reports, but I will allow the council to add to that. Mr. Bullock.
I just want to add that I want to thank the citizens for sending me and the other council members that went to the NLC conference out there. And I want to thank my fellow council people that went out there with us. We had a great time. We had productive meetings. Everybody went to classes. And one of the classes that we are looking forward to bringing in the next NLC meeting, or in Boston or Boston or Washington, D.C. next year, is a class on citizens communication from both perspectives. The perspective of council, talking to the citizens and dealing with councils, and the perspective of the citizens speaking to councils. And it was a unanimous, because everybody has some kind of issue with citizens communication, and you would never know it, but you would not believe how many cities, when that was brought up, we didn't have enough time to completely talk about it with all the representatives out there. Thank you.
Mr. Moreno.
Just two quick items while you guys were working hard for us in D.C. I had the opportunity to attend the 2012 State of DIA luncheon with a couple of staff members, and that was really exciting, because I think we're really on the brink of something really exciting at the airport. This whole Airtropolis concept is really going to take it to a new level, and I think it only spells out good things for Commerce City. The other item is I want to thank the Planning Department and Economic Development for meeting with me with a local business owner. It's a business on Rosemary that's looking to expand and hire more folks and put in more capital investment into Commerce City, and they were very clear about the fact that Commerce City was their first choice and that they wanted to stay here. And that's always really exciting to hear from a local business owner. It was, from the business owner's perspective, he said it was a testament to the ease in which he's worked with the city. So thanks for your work.
Okay. Mr. Teeter.
I would just like to let everybody know that I'm going to miss the meeting next Monday night, personal business.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney.
Just real quickly, last week attended the 27J Capital Facility Fee Foundation. That's the foundation made up of members of Commerce City, Thornton, Brighton, and the school district, as well as our developers community. Was established about a decade ago to help collect funds in a sort of voluntary manner from our home builders community to help with capital facility needs in the 27J school district. That organization was established with about a 10-year sunset, and so it's technically dead. The group has been going through for about the last 6 months an effort to reassess its future direction, establish a new participant agreement, and have begun securing participation agreements one-off, the first of which was from KB Homes, which was a pretty significant agreement that was reached there. Recently, another home builder who's building an apartment complex in Brighton has signed on, and so there is some good momentum starting to develop, which is exciting. These folks definitely see the value and the importance of schools and understand the need to help realize that infrastructure for the community. So exciting developments there, and hope to continue to see that progress continue. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Douglas.
Thanks. I'd like to thank the citizens also for allowing me to go out to Washington. Really great experience. Attended 2 classes there, and there are a lot of cities that have similar problems as we do. Some cities handle their citizens' communication a lot different than we do. I gave some suggestions on how our formula works, and some are going to take those suggestions home. Was able to, we all went to the Capitol. I got to go on the Senate gallery floor and watch part of the debate on the transportation bill, which was kind of neat. I tell you what, they got a lot of things going on in Washington, and for what we have to deal with, I'm happy to be living here and not a city council member in Washington. So thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, I too would like to thank the residents for allowing all of the council the opportunity to attend the National League of Cities Conference. I think it always helps. We go out there and we work with CML and all of the other cities, and we push in force the needs of our local communities. And it's not just Commerce City, it takes all of the other cities with the same kind of message to help push the process forward to protect the things that the local communities need from our federal government. So I appreciate the citizens allowing that opportunity to continue. If there be nothing further to come before, Mr. Douglas?
Yes, I forgot to say that I did attend the No Fracking meeting over at Landmark on Saturday, and it was really well informed and more educational bits put forward to some citizens. I saw a lot of different faces there. A lot of people didn't understand the process that we're going through as far as the Land Development Code and the MOU. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Seeing nothing further to come before this council this evening, we are adjourned. Yes, sir.